pre-trip inspection on the St. Johns County Utilities truck. It's an F750 Super Duty. This will be for a modified A. Using this book, sections 11M of the vehicle inspection, this will be the supplemental material that you get from the CDL Driver's Handbook in the state of Florida. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to look for emergency equipment. Where we're looking for emergency equipment here on page 11M1, down here under emergency equipment, we're inspecting for 3 red reflective triangles, 6 fuses, or 3 liquid burning flares. We're not going to be looking for liquid burning flares. I don't think people really use those anymore. Leave it in the comments if they actually do. We're also inspecting for a properly charged and secured fire extinguisher that was in underneath the seat, and for spare electrical fuses if used, or identify the circuit breakers. This truck uses fuses. However, the note down here says if the vehicle is not equipped with electrical fuses, you must mention this to the examiner and identify that the vehicle operates on circuit breakers. So let's go ahead and go inside. This vehicle inspection, like any portion of the CDL exam, you must get in and out with 3 points of contact at all times. If you're getting in the vehicle, use 2 feet and a hand. Use the handholds to get in. When getting out, do the same on the way out. Use the handholds. If you don't do this on your test, they will fail you, or rather you will fail yourself. Make sure you shut your door. Don't start this vehicle with the door open. We're going to be using the list. So the list is located back here on page 11, Mike 11. We're using this combination here. This is a modified A. That would be a Class B vehicle with a trailer with a gross vehicle weight rating of 10,000 pounds or greater. The Class B vehicle itself has a gross vehicle weight rating of 26,001 pounds or greater. Like the other video that I have for just a regular Class B, we're going to start here on the items that you don't need to have power for. We're going to move on to our traffic monitoring devices, our mirrors. So on the right side and on the left side, we have a West Coast mirror and a convex mirror, a big flat mirror and the one that's a little bubbly that lets you see a little more around the truck. We're going to make sure that we follow the criteria for those things. So let's look on page 11M2. Right here where it says windshield and traffic monitoring devices. Well, we come to our traffic monitoring devices, our mirrors, and we're looking down here. The second bullet point here says inspect that the mirrors are clean and adjusted properly from the inside when present. So if you didn't have a mirror, obviously you wouldn't check it. If equipped, that the rear side view mirror monitoring devices or cameras are clean and in working condition. So they have to work if they're there. Devices should be viewable from the inside and the video display must be operable and adjusted for viewing. This truck has a rear camera. The monitor is right here. This is a traffic monitoring device. We'll be checking that later when we get power to the vehicle. For right now, let's move to the windshield. Moving across, we're looking for the criteria for the windshield. Inspect that the windshield is clean with no obstructions except for an inspection sticker, which isn't required in the state of Florida. So we don't have an inspection sticker on this windshield. There can be no damage such as cracks or flaws to the glass. So we've checked our windshield. Let's look at what's next. What we call a safe start. So in order to safe start a truck, what we're going to do is we're going to check that the brake buttons are pulled out. They're both applied. We're going to turn the key to the run position We're going to let all the gauges sweep and bleep, cover the foot brake, and this is an automatic truck, so we don't have a clutch to deal with, and it's in neutral. Levels come up. Now let's talk about the next step on the list. Our lighting indicators, our dash is lit up. However, we'll put the headlights on. The switch is over here on this truck. And what we're going to do is we're going to check our left turn signal first to make sure the indicator right here comes on and goes off. We're going to check our four ways, which are right here. Both of those lighting indicators come on because we're not only checking the lights on the dash, but we're checking the switch to make sure it works. And shut it back off. Now we're going to check our right turn signal. Right there, that indicator comes on and goes off. Now we have to find our high beam indicator to make sure we're not blinding people on the road. With this truck, flash to pass is the one you pull on, and it just lights that indicator up like that. Now, to get the high beams on, you push it forward one. Now it stays on. So the high beam indicator comes on and stays on, and then to shut it off, you just pull back on it and it shuts off. Next on the list is going to be wipers and washers. So our washers and wipers are right here. It works and squirts. It should be squirting a little bit of fluid on the windshield. And then we know that not only do the wipers make contact with the glass, but it clears the windshield too without streaks and things like that. Let's talk about the wipers. Now the criteria for the wipers is going to be also in this section. We're going to go down to wipers and washers. Inspect that the wiper arms and blades are secured, not damaged, and demonstrate wipers operate smoothly by turning them on and off. I did that for you. Inspect for windshield washer fluid, which demonstrate the windshield washers operate correctly by activating the washers. Okay, this is expected during the test. The next step, we're going to demonstrate the heater and defroster. Okay, here's what it says to do. Inspection. Identify, describe, and demonstrate the heater and defroster work correctly by operating the controls. So we'll go over here to our heater and defroster. We're going to make sure we find the setting that activates the heat for the windshield and the heat for the floor. We're going to turn it all the way on. We're going to feel up here for some air, and we're going to feel down here for some air. So let's look back at our list. That's going to be our horns. Description, here's our inspection. Inspect that the horn and or electric horn work. Well, that's the fun part. The button for the air horn is over here, and it works. And the button for the city horn is right there. Now I've just inspected the horns. We're going to do a parking brake check, or the tug test. Parking brake test. You will be required to demonstrate the parking brake check and trailer brake check if equipped. This procedure is designed to determine that the parking brakes are working correctly and they keep the vehicle from moving. The parking brake. With the parking brake engaged, trailer brakes released on a combination vehicle, if applicable. Remove the foot from the service brake and inspect that the parking brake will hold the vehicle by gently pulling forward with the parking brake on. So let's try that. Okay. The trailer brake is engaged. We're going to release the brake and we're going to engage the other brake. We're going to put in gear, tug on it, and it does not move. Service brake check. That's going to be the next one in line. S, service brake check. TSP will be the last one for that. So service brake check. You'll be required to demonstrate that the application of air or hydraulic service brakes. This procedure is designed to determine that the brakes are working correctly and that the vehicle does not pull to one side or the other at low speed. So pull forward at 5 miles per hour, apply the foot brake, and come to a complete stop. Inspect to see that the vehicle does not pull to either side and stops when the service brake is applied. If the vehicle pulls to either side and does not stop, well, the brakes may not be working correctly. In other words, the brakes aren't working correctly and you need to park the truck and get a mechanic. So let's release the brakes. Okay, we'll put it in drive. We're going to pull ahead at 5 miles an hour. That'll be just braking that speed right there. And then we're going to gently brake and see if it comes to a complete stop. So moving ahead, 5 miles an hour, gently braking. Hands off the wheel. Didn't pull to the left, to the right. That indicates that it is working correctly. Now, you notice I left it in neutral. Brakes are all released. We're going to do what's called a LAB. But first, we're going to make sure that it has a full amount of air. So make sure it's built to maximum operating range with the brakes pushed in. The buttons are pushed in right now. So the governor isn't cutting on because it's above the governor cut-in pressure. So I'm going to kick that brake a little bit and bring some air out of it. And I'm going to drop the window down a little bit so we can hear outside. So when that governor cuts off, you're going to hear the air dryer spit out a little bit of air. Bring the RPMs up so that it builds a little bit quicker. And we're going to wait for it to purge or sneeze. There it is. Now, with the air built all the way to maximum operating pressure, the buttons are pushed in. The next thing we're going to do a leak down test. I'm going to turn the truck off. Then I'm going to turn the truck to the on position where it's not running, but it's in the run position. We're going to press the brake, hold the brake for 3 seconds. During that 3 seconds, we're going to wait for the air to stabilize. This is the only time I'm going to use my phone for this.
63 seconds, counting down.
So I'm holding it. The air stabilized at 130 pounds per square inch on the gauge. And we're going to hold that for 1 minute. When that 1 minute's up, I'm going to tell the examiner what it ended at. And that will be our leak down test. It's that easy. 34 seconds now. And you don't necessarily have to have Siri do it. You can just find the little stopwatch thingy on there yourself and do it. And we've got 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it's done. All right. Where'd we end up? Well, it didn't lose any air pressure at all. Well, better now. This is a brand new truck. So we're still sitting at 130 pounds per square inch. Now we're going to simulate what happens when this thing does lose air. We're going to fan the brakes down until the low air warning alarm and or light come on. They must come on above 55 PSI. It's important that you say that. Let's look at what it says in the book about this. We're going to go to page 11M3. Let's talk about the air brake check on air brake equipped vehicles only. Air gauge and or governor cut off check. Chock the wheels, start the vehicle, inspect that the air gauge is working and builds air to pressure to governor cutoff, approximately 120 to 140, and identify the cutoff pressure for your vehicle. It's important. Identify the cutoff pressure for your vehicle between 120 and 140 PSI. Now also, it helps to tell them where it actually cut off. That way that when they're looking at it, because you can't see this gauge from where you're sitting over there in this truck. So you're going to be the one in charge of that gauge. Tell them what's going on with the gauge. We're looking for knowledge. We're not necessarily looking for a script. Okay, so we've done that. Now let's talk about air leakage rate. So shut off the engine, return the key to the on position, release the parking brakes, all vehicles, while they're already released from the service brake check. Fully apply the foot brake. Now, fully apply means enough pressure to stop the vehicle, not push it all the way to the floor and blow the brake lines off the vehicle. Once the air gauge is stabilized, hold the foot brake for 1 minute. Inspect the air gauge to see if the air pressure drops more than 3 pounds in 1 minute on a single vehicle. That'd be just a Class B. This one is an air brakes trailer as well. So you're going to hold it for 1 minute and it should lose no more than 4 pounds in 1 minute for this vehicle. Now we move on to air warning devices. So without restarting the engine, make sure the key or power is on. So it's in the run position still from the leak down test. Begin fanning off the air pressure by applying and releasing the foot brake. Low air warning buzzer devices, lights, or a flag. That's another thing entirely for a different video. But the thing would be called a wigwag. Should activate before the pressure drops below 55 psi. So that's always kind of confusing for a lot of people. They're really not sure how to make that statement happen. Just know that it has to happen above 55 psi on the gauge, okay? Or level specified by the manufacturer. Well, they don't have a specification on here. It'd be written on the gauge if there was. It is the applicant's responsibility to know the vehicle manufacturer specifications. Well, in this case, it's going to be above 55 psi. Okay, so now let's do that. Looking at the gauge drop, we're at a 120. We're at 90. We're at 75. Right around 75. Emergency brake test. Continue to fan off the air pressure. The parking brake and or emergency brake close. So the dash valve should close between 20 and 45 psi. No less than 20 psi, no more than 45. So you're paying attention to this gauge and this set of buttons here while you're doing it. So I'm fanning these off. We're at 60. Pedal's getting a little weak. 50. Past 40. Approaching 30. And just below 30 is where these dash valves popped out. And that is our LAB. So now let's look back at our list. What do we have after that? Well, we've done everything on this checklist. During the test, you're going to be given a copy of this that you can actually use and check these items off. But no additional writing will be allowed on it. So you are only required to inspect the items on the CDL vehicle inspection checklist. You may use this checklist for your test and check off items as you have completed them. No additional markings or writing may be placed on this checklist. You must name, point to, and or touch and fully explain what you are inspecting each safety critical item for. If you do not do so, you will not get credit for that item or items. Okay? So if you don't do these things, you're not going to get credit. If you have additional writing on this, like this, you see this little stuff right here? You can't have that on there. More than likely, your examiner is going to hand you a laminated copy to use. And it'll be clean. There won't be anything on it. And probably a dry erase marker. So, we're going to go outside the vehicle. We're not going to do an operations check until last because that's just one point and it's all those lights and it'll take time. So, when we get out of the vehicle, we're going to start with the front of the vehicle / engine area. So, like getting into this vehicle, you're going to use 3 points of contact to get out of this vehicle. If you got a problem with the steering wheel, get the steering wheel out of the way as best you can. Grab both sides of this vehicle like this, the handholds that are available. You're going to have the seat like this. Grabbing these handholds, getting out properly. That way you don't slip and fall on these step tracks. If there's oil or diesel fuel on these step tracks, it'll make your knee slip. At the front of the vehicle is lenses. On the list right there. We'll put a check mark right there. Let's go to the criteria. So on page 11M5, we're going to the first item. It's lenses. What we're inspecting for these things, we inspect that the light lenses or covers are the proper color, clean and not broken and not missing. So these here, these are the headlights. We're inspecting that they're clean, clear, and not broken. They're the proper color. So the proper colors would be amber and clear to the front, red to the rear. The next thing we're going to check on this list, let's check the fluid levels on this truck. Fluids, and you're going to grab, pull back. As you're pulling back, slide one hand up. That'll keep you safe. So in case this thing decides to come a little further than its safety ropes or chains, we're going to check our fluid levels. So what fluids do we have on the side of this truck? We have our coolant, we have our oil, we have our transmission fluid. We're going to check that the coolant is between minimum and maximum. We're going to check that our oil is up in the hash marks on the stick by pulling it out, wiping it off, putting it back in, pulling it back out, and we're going to check the level of the oil. The transmission fluid has to be checked when it's hot, but that will be up into the full area on the stick. Another fluid level we're going to check is our power steering fluid. This has a clearish container. We can see that it's between the add and the full mark on the container itself. The next thing we're going to check is for fluid and air leaks on the vehicle, under the vehicle, that sort of thing. So underneath the vehicle, there should be no puddles or dripping engine oil or transmission fluid or coolant. Any of the fluids we just checked, we don't see any evidence that they're dripping or leaking under the vehicle. We're going to check air lines that connect. Various airlines like the ones up here for the air manifold, down here coming off the air compressor, the ones coming off the air compressor here, the ones going into the brake chambers. We're going to check those for any signs of leaks. You'll notice that there'll be some evidence like air moved across something, and you can see that the dirt's been moved or something like that. You'll be able to see the leaks a little bit. The steering system on this vehicle that comes down from the steering wheel. You have down in here, you have a steering gear shaft that runs down to the steering gear box. You have a pitman arm, a drag link. Under here, you have an upper and a lower control arm and a tie rod that runs across the vehicle this way. That its purpose is to tie the two steer tires together so it'll move properly and turn. All of these items that you're checking, you're making sure there are no missing links, rods. There are no missing connectors like ball joints. Ball joints must be properly lubricated so that they work and function properly. All of these items are connected with castle nuts, cotter keys, and mounting hardware. Make sure that all of them have their proper mounting hardware and none of them are cracked, twisted, bent, or loose. Now, what we're inspecting the tires for is tire inflation. Inspect for proper inflation using the tire gauge. Make sure that all valve stems are accessible. That's for the tire. Tire condition. Inspect for cuts and damage that exposed body plies to the tire in the tread and in the sidewall. Make sure that valve caps are not missing and valve stems are not damaged or broken. Look for bumps and bulges in the sidewall and mismatched diameters in dual tires. Tread depth. Inspect for minimum tread depth with a tread depth gauge on all major tread grooves. 4/32 of an inch on steer axle tires and 2/32 of an inch on all other tires. Note this, you will not get credit if you simply kick the tires or use a mallet to inspect for proper inflation. You must mention the use of a tire gauge. If you just kick the tire, you're not going to get the point. If you whack it with a hammer, you're not getting a point. Note that if these are equipped with automatic tire inflation systems or tire pressure monitoring systems, that the hoses are connected to the valve stems. You will need to also mention that the tire pressure is monitored and adjusted by an automatic system, and inspect that it's working properly. Inspecting to make sure they're not damaged or cracked or bent. Rims cannot have welding repairs. Inspect for rust trails that may indicate the rim is loose on a wedge wheel if applicable. Inspect studs and bolt holes to make sure that they are not elongated out around and there are no missing or loose nuts or bolts. Wheel fasteners. Inspect that all lug nuts are present. So all of these lug nuts are present. Inspect that the lug nuts are not loose and there are no signs of rust trails or shiny threads that may show looseness. Inspect there are no broken studs, so you cannot have any of these broken. Moving along to springs in the front of this vehicle. Some vehicles have airbags in the front. This one does not. We're inspecting the following items must be inspected where visible and accessible on each axis. So if you can't get to an item, explain how you would get to an item. What we are inspecting for is missing, shifted, cracked, or broken leaf springs, and inspect that the spring mounts are not cracked, broken, or any missing parts. So down in here, see, I can get in there. You got leaf springs are stacked on top of one another. Your overload spring is also underneath it, and they're properly mounted in the front, in the back, and in the center with U-bolts. The next one is shock absorbers are secure, not damaged, or leaking. We've all seen damaged shock absorbers on our cars. They have a little bit of oil leaking out of them, and it collects a lot of dirt. So you can tell when they're leaking. Inspect that the vehicle is sitting level, front to rear, side to side. So this thing is not cantered or tilted because of a broken suspension component. It's sitting level on the road or on the surface that it's sitting on. Like a flat tire would make it sit funny. A broken shock might make it sit funny. Broken leaf springs would definitely make it sit funny. So it's sitting level. Brake lines, brake hoses, brake leaks. That's our next thing on the list. So what we're inspecting that the hoses or lines can supply air or hydraulic fluid to the brakes and are not leaking. Inspect for cracked, worn, frayed hoses or lines. Inspect that all hoses, lines, couplings, and fittings are secure. So they're mounted and secure. Not leaking around the mounts. That if it has electric brakes, inspect that electric lines are secure and the casing is not worn or cracked. Contaminants. Okay, so sometimes these hubs, they leak on the inside. And then when it does, you end up getting all kinds of contaminants in there, like dirt will collect in there, rocks, mud, oil, grease. And then you can't stop the truck because there's so much debris and contaminant oil up inside that brake drum that everything's just slipping around and it can't stop properly. It's a well-greased brake drum at that point. So what we're looking for, if accessible, which this is not, it's buried in there pretty good, we're looking for contaminants such as grease, oil, or etc. I'm not real sure what etc. is, but apparently it's pretty bad. On the brake lining or pads, the brake drum or disc can affect the braking capabilities, like I just explained. Now we're looking at the side of the vehicle. And once again, we come in contact with this thing called lenses and reflectors. So we're checking that they're the proper color. They're not cracked or broken. They're clean. They're properly secured. So we have one right here. It's a little LED light. It's orange. It's clean. It's not cracked. We've got another one here. It's another marker light. Okay, it's marking the position. And we're just going to go and check all of those available on the side of this vehicle. You can see right there that there's some more down there. They're the proper color all the way down there. Let's look at the traffic monitoring devices again, the mirror. This mirror is attached with nuts and bolts. Up here, there's a screw that holds this on. This is attached on the inside. It's not loose. The mount is not bent or broken. Let's ask the book what it wants to know about that. Hello, book. Here's what they want to know about that. It's clean. The mirror is clean and not cracked. Well, we said that inside. The mirror brackets are not bent and are mounted securely with no missing parts. That is a true statement for this. If equipped with rear or side view monitoring devices such as cameras, may be clean to view from the inside. You do have a mirror. It's clean and viewable from the inside. It's properly adjusted from the inside. And then the camera monitor on the dash is also in the same condition. Battery / electrical system. So wherever located, inspect that the batteries are secure if visible. Okay, it says if visible. These are not visible. Let's show you where they are. They're bolted in place behind this step. So you're not getting to them. However, what we're looking for, that the connections are all tight and should not show signs of excessive corrosion. If visible, these are not. Inspect all electrical system cables and lines that are secured, not cracked or worn. Inspect the box, cover, and door is secure if applicable. Yes, this is quite secure. These, I don't see any signs of corrosion or dry rot or any frays, cuts, or tears on those particular electrical system components. Then we're moving on to the fuel tanks and def tank. Well, that'd be on the other side. So the first thing we come to is our def tank or DEF tank. And let's see what the good book wants us to inspect on that DEF tank. All right, let's see. Well, they want me to inspect the fuel tank first, so I can do that. So we're inspecting that the fuel tank, including diesel exhaust fluid, so they're inspecting both of them, if equipped, are securely mounted, the caps are tight, and that there are no leaks from the tanks or lines. So you're looking at this thing to make sure it's not leaking. You're looking at the lines to make sure they're securely mounted and not leaking. Same with this fuel tank. Same criteria. Check up in here, look at the fuel hoses and things like that. The frame, well, frames, because we have two vehicles here. What we're inspecting our frames for. We're inspecting for cracks, broken welds, holes, or other damage to the frame members, including trailers, which we do have. We're inspecting for cracks, breaks, holes in the cargo area of the floor. We're inspecting for the release handle, if it has one. That one does not. That trailer doesn't have it. Okay? So let's look at where the frame may be on this truck. We're going to look in here, because you can't really see the frame very well from anywhere but this point. So up in here, you see that big metal piece that runs from front to back. That's what you're checking. That's the frame. We're going to look up under here and see if there's holes in the floor that might let water in or exhaust into the cab. And then we're going to check our bed the same way. We don't want any tools falling out of the toolboxes onto the floor, onto the ground, on the highway. We want to make sure that the air compressor doesn't fall through the bottom of the truck and take the drive shaft out. That would be a bad deal. Now, what we come to next, we go to the rear of the vehicle, check the lights and reflectors. Now back here, we're checking that our lights and reflectors are the proper color. They're clean and properly mounted. Back there we have the traffic monitoring camera. It's properly mounted. It's clean and clear of debris. So the good book wants us to say that we inspect the lens and lights and or covers for the proper color, clean and clear, not broken or missing. Inspect that reflectors are proper color, clean, clear, not missing. On a combination vehicle, we only need to inspect the rear of the trailer. So we did a little more. This is a combination vehicle, isn't it? We've got all this thing going on. So this is a combination vehicle. We're going to check air and electrical connectors. So we're going to start with our air and electrical lines and connectors. We are checking right here. We inspect that the air and electrical connectors are on the power unit, and the trailer unit are seated and sealed free of damage and locked in place. So I'm checking this to make sure it's locked in place. So we're making sure that it's sealed. Make sure that the lines are not frayed, cut, or torn. Moving along, our air hoses and electrical lines are not cut or cracked, chafed or spliced, taped or worn. Well, normally we'd have air lines here for that, but at the moment that trailer is kind of out of service. Electrical lines and air lines, if equipped, are not tangled, crimped, or pinched and dragging against the vehicle parts on the ground. So this one isn't dragging on anything. This line is hooked up to this safety chain spot so that if the pencil hitch lets go, it'll activate these electric brakes on this. So in here we got a list of different things. We have a fifth wheel skid plate, a pencil hook, or a tow hitch. So in this case, we have a pencil hook. So if you zoom in here, you'll see that we have a pencil hook here. We're going to make sure that this safety pin is locking this latch in place so that this doesn't come loose and let this go. And then what they want to know, pencil hook combinations only, inspect that the pencil hook is securely mounted to the frame. Okay, so this thing is mounted to this big bar, which is bolted right to the frame and welded. Inspect for loose or missing parts, including mounting bolts, nuts, pins, brackets, and clamps. Pins are here. All the nuts and bolts are here. And there'll be a clamp. Inspect for cracks, breaks, or excessive wear. Well, I see no cracks or breaks anywhere on here. There's no excessive wear. It's fairly new. So trailer drawbar ring and tongue. What we're looking for is inspect that the drawbar ring or eye is not bent or twisted. So the drawbar ring right here, it's in really good shape. It's not bent or twisted. There are no cracks in the housing or along any part of it. We're going to inspect that the ring or eye is secured to the trailer tongue, that there are no loose or missing bolts or broken welds or cracks. So it's mounted here with these nuts and bolts. There are no broken, cracked parts. We're inspecting that the drawbar ring or eye is not worn. We've done that. Inspect the trailer tongue for dents, twists, or cracks and broken welds. If that the trailer tongue can support the weight of the load. If extendable, inspect the bolts. This is not extendable. Support the weight of the load. Extendable. Inspect the bolts. Locking pins, cotter pins are in place. So these bolts are the things that are holding this eyelet on. So they're all in place. Now, what's next on the list? Locking or safety devices. And on our, let's see, fifth wheel systems only, all other coupling systems. So for this one, we're inspecting the locking mechanism or latch for missing broken parts. Make sure the pencil hitch release latch lever is in place and secure. We had done that already. It's there. It's got that. This is locked. Inspect safety cables and chains are secured, crossed, and free of kinks and excessive slack if present. Breakaway cables must be engaged. Okay, so here we go. Our safety chains are in place. They're crossed. The electric brake activator is on there. Landing gear and clearance. So landing gear. So let's look at the landing gear must be fully raised. It is. It's the landing gear. There are no missing parts. The crank handle is secure. The support frame and landing pads are not damaged. So the support frame for this here, and that's the landing pad. They're not cracked or damaged. It's not aero hydraulic, so we're moving on to positioned properly so that the tractor frame will clear the landing gear during turns. So this is far enough away from this. There's at least 3 feet between here and there so that this does not come in contact with that. And then we're looking for reflective tape. Along the side of this trailer is reflective tape. Inspect that the reflector tape on the sides and rear of the trailer is present and affixed securely to the vehicle. So it's here. Come on back, let's look at the back. And we'll notice that it is also here on the back side of the trailer. Now, while we're here on the back side of the trailer, it also says check the lenses and reflectors. So what we're checking for is the same thing we're checking for on everything else as far as lenses and that they're the proper color, they're clean and attached to the vehicle, not broken or damaged. Lastly, we have our light operations check. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that right turn signal on. And I'm going to activate the high beams. To make sure that the high beams are on. Let's check this out. High beam is on, as well as our marker lights up top and on the side. Those are clearance lights up top. They're also called ID lights. This is our right turn signal here and a high beam there. This is a marker light. This is a right turn signal and a marker light. Coming down here, this is just a marker light. This one here, this will be your right turn signal. It's also a marker light right now. It has the functions of being a brake light and a reverse light also. Moving our way down here, this is a marker light that's burning. These are the proper color. Down to the back of the vehicle, we have a marker light down there. It's also a right turn signal. These here identify the vehicle as a commercial vehicle. The 3 lights in the middle, those are marker lights as well. These are tail lights because they're on the tail of the vehicle. And that's also a tail light that's burning currently. Underneath that will be a plate light, which is currently on. Coming up the side here, we have another marker light that's burning here and here. This is acting as a tail light. There's a plate light right here over the top of the bag. It's burning. And along the side here, we have another marker light, and we're back to the front. Shutting off the high beam, activating the left turn signal. We're going to go to the front of the vehicle. Our left turn signal is on. This indicates that both of our low beam lights are actually burning properly. What we've got here, this one becomes a marker light and a turn signal. On the left, again, just a marker light. Our tail light back here, we have 2 marker lights up here. Our tail light becomes a left turn signal and a tail light here. There's a tail light over there. And here's the plate light. You can see that it's working. 2 marker lights like we saw before. Coming back. The tail light on this side now becomes a turn signal tail light. And also it has a tag light down there. Our other tail lights are still burning. We have another light down here. That's a marker light. There's a correlating one on the other side. Shutting off our left turn signal. Turn on our 4-way lights. So we'll notice that this one is now functioning as a 4-way. So is this one. Also this one. And this one. This one here. This light here is a part of the 4-way system. That one there also. Moving our way up, we'll notice that tail light is now part of the 4-ways. In order to check the brake lights, we're going to look at where the tail lights are. This will become a brake light, as well as that one over there. And the correlating ones on the back of this trailer will as well. This will be a brake light, that'll be a brake light. So if you would you please stand here? I'm going to activate the brake pedal and they should come on. So